Hello, everybody. We'll wait a couple of minutes just to see if people are coming in. And for those of you who have joined already, thank you for being so on time, even though I did start at 8:01, so it's partially my fault. All right. Wait, see as people come in, and then we can get started. All right, we'll wait one more minute. All right, I think I'll get started. Hi to anyone who is tuning in, whether it be live or later on, a couple of days later or whatnot. My name is Nicole. I am a Schulich leader from 2017, and I currently attend McMaster University, and I am in their honors chemical biology program. And I have a co-ops in the co-op program, which means that I do have a degree that is 5 years, which means I get about 16 months worth of co-op total. I am just finishing up my first co-op term right now. I was on my first co-op term in Vancouver, actually, working at Stem Cell Technologies. Stem Cell is a biotech company that does a lot of research. Specifically, they specialize in like stem cell product development and research, but I was working in the molecular genetics slash genomics department. And then, unfortunately, due to everyone's favorite virus, COVID, I was forced to relocate back to my house in Toronto, and I have been here ever since April, doing work for the McMaster Science Society, which is an organization I've been involved with for the past 4 years at McMaster. Essentially, the MSS works to enhance the undergraduate student experience by providing programs and events for various students. And it's been a really awesome experience being on the society for 4 years. I'm the current president there. In terms of previous experience to go off of, I had previously done research in a lab at Sick Kids, specifically the Cone Lab, working with their rare disease research, whether it be Duchenne muscular dystrophy or Niemann-Pick disease type C. I've worked in both of those fields, working with CRISPR-Cas9. So if you have any questions, if any of the topics that I am discussing or mentioning are piquing your interest in any way, shape, or form, please don't hesitate to send me a message and reach out to me through various. I think if you go on to see more Schulichs, you'll have my email there. But I can drop contacts in the comments of this video if anyone is interested, or you can message me on Facebook. I will be honest, this is really weird for me because I've never gone live on Facebook before, and we're just going for it. So essentially, how how this AMA works is I have some questions here to start off with, and then if you have any questions for me, you can leave them in the comments. And then from there, we could go on to answering anything, whether you see anything of interest in the bio that was posted earlier, if you just generally want to talk about first year science, science in general, experiences, whatnot. I am here for all of that. So, kind of going off of the first thing, one of the questions that I have here is, when did you know you wanted to pursue a career in your current discipline? So, for those of you who haven't heard of chemical biology as a degree before, chemical biology is one of the specializations that McMaster has under the Department of Chemistry. And what it is, how I like to differentiate it is, for those of you who have heard, biochemistry is a very common specialization. Whereas if you look at, for example, like the Krebs cycle, for those of you taking a metabolism course, I'm sorry if you wanted to forget that, but I'm going to bring it up again. Essentially, if you look at the Krebs cycle, if you care more about the biological side of things, you think about the role that the Krebs cycle plays in metabolism in an organism that allows it to complete um, all of its tasks, allows it to supply energy to various eukaryotic organisms. But if you're interested in chemical biology, which is the discipline that I am in, you are interested in one like specific step in the Krebs cycle, like for example, like a phosphorylation of a certain compound to bring it from like one state to another. That chemistry, the chemistry of how that biological interaction occurs, and how those kind of chemical interactions drive biological systems, is why I decided to pursue chemical biology. Now, for some folks, this may sound like biochemistry, and that's because a lot of universities, it's very inconsistent. Some choose to have biochemistry specializations that focus more on the chemistry, and some choose to have biochem specializations that focus more on like a base protein level and a systems level. And so for me at McMaster, I had found interest in the chemistry side of things. So that's why I ended up pursuing chemical biology, and that's kind of where my degree went. Chemical biology allows you to take upper year courses that include natural products, so understanding various like organisms and what kind of products they produce, what roles they play, the structures that are the like chemical structures that are commonly seen in nature. Like medicinal chemistry, so understanding the chemistry of pharmaceuticals and drugs, a polymers course, understanding like polymer chemistry and things like styrofoam and PVC and plastics and how those polymers are actually formed. If you are not a chemistry person, I apologize if all of that was deafeningly uninteresting. But that, to me, understanding how things work and understanding the chemical level at which things operate is fantastic. It's just one of the most creative and like foundational things, at least for me, in terms of chemistry, because everyone knows if you go back from chemistry it's physics, and the old saying, back from physics is math. But for me, like, understand things at a chemical level is what kind of pushed me to go into chemical biology. Now, this doesn't necessarily line up with the experiences that I have, because I have a lot of research experience in molecular bio. So for those of you who are in programs where you are kind of unsure of what like you want to be doing, or feel like your degree doesn't necessarily line up with what you want to do, don't stress, because you have the opportunity to take on experiences outside of what the piece of paper at the end of your degree says that you're supposed to be doing. It can be really scary, but I guarantee that if those are the kind of experiences that you want to pursue, space is open for you. Like, for example, my first volunteer lab experience was in bioengineering in a lab at McMaster. And then from there, I had jumped from bioengineering to a molecular biology lab at Sick Kids, which was a very scary experience because those are two very different skill sets, going all the way from synthesizing nanoparticles and analyzing like drug delivery curves and knowing all of that, versus molecular bio, which is a lot of PCR, gels, Western blotting, all of that bio wet lab experience that, for those of you who have done it, know exactly what I'm talking about. It is something that was scary, but it's like an experience that I don't regret, because it allowed me to kind of broaden my skills outside of my degree. Because also chemical biology, I was doing a lot of like synthesis, NMR, like LCMS, all of that, like all of the chemistry techniques I was gaining within my degree. And then for my research positions, I was going outside of that to learn more about biology and bioengineering. So though the chemical biology still grounds like what I'm learning necessarily within my bachelor's, but I'm hoping to take all of that experience and branch out into whichever field that I end up like pursuing, because I have a like for those of you who are nearing the end of your degree, understanding kind of pinpointing that interest and where you kind of want to go further, especially for anyone who's looking to pursue academia. That's kind of the how I'm approaching my undergraduate, is how much experience can you gain in various aspects of science? Because if you love science, at least part of it is interesting for you through the entire journey. And which one ignites the most curiosity, and then go from there, because you are choosing to pursue something for a bit. But there are so many Schulich leaders within the network who have gone on to do like masters, PhDs, MD PhDs, who are definitely more qualified than me to talk about this. So I encourage you to reach out to them if you have any questions about like grad school and whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up pursuing a career in my current discipline. So it ended up being in chem bio. But how you're kind of able to go outside of that and do pretty much whatever interests you and whatever ignites your curiosity, and go from there. So I'm still looking at this list of questions. What do you find most interesting or exciting about your field of study? For chemical biology, it's honestly just understanding how things work. If you're, like for me, I found when I was in first year science, I found biology frustrating because I wanted to know more. And so when I ended up in chemical biology and was able to kind of unravel the chemistry behind every biological interaction, boom, that was exactly the level of understanding that I was craving. And really and truly, if you find an area of your degree that keeps you curious and keeps you asking questions and invested and talking passionately about it to other people, you are in the right place. All right, I'm going to talk a little quickly about my experience at Stem Cell Technologies, because one of the things I think I had tagged on here is about like industry research. So I had decided back, amazing, look at that timing. So Julia asked a question in the chat about my co-op. How did you learn about stem cell and what pushed you to go out of the province? So let's talk a little bit about going outside of your current area of study, literally, to go pursue a co-op job. So essentially, I had for a while known that I wanted to utilize my co-op term to explore other parts of Canada. It's one of those opportunities on a co-op term where you know you're moving somewhere and you have a job wherever you're going, which means that things like paying rent and paying groceries and paying for, clothing, amenities, whatnot, your job is counterbalancing that. So you are able to sustain a living outside of your student house at your university, or if you're living at home. And so that was one thing. So I did want to leave and explore. The second thing was the reason I chose to pursue a co-op term was to broaden my experiences in science. So to better understand what was out there and what opportunities I could pursue after my bachelor's. And so industry research was something that everyone talks about. Like if you go to career fairs, they tell you, oh, you can do research in industry. And you're like, what is this industry thing? Everyone uses the word and no one tells me anything else. And so when I was looking up industry science opportunities, stem cell technologies that come up. They have co-op students like year round essentially, and a lot of universities are well connected to their like co-op coordinator or the person who organizes all the co-op positions, and they hire a good amount of co-op students every term. And so essentially a bunch of jobs had gone up for co-op student positions at Stem Cell. And they had things uh, like pancreatic student, bioengineering, um, immuno hematopoietic cell co-op student, a lot of things that were very much like new things that I had learned about in my like third year bio courses, and things that I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. I can learn how to, culture stem cells and learn how to do like live cell culture, which is something I'd never done before, all of that. And so these kind of opportunities to work in a new lab setting, coupled with the fact that Stem Cell was a biotechnology company in Vancouver, kind of pushed me to apply for these positions. So the other thing about Stem Cell is that I'd heard a lot of good student experience about it. So a lot of folks at McMaster had pursued a co-op position at Stem Cell, and it spoke very highly of the experience. And so I was kind of pushed and given the confidence to apply outside of the province. So I'd applied for a job there. I'd applied for multiple positions and ended up securing a job as their molecular / genomics department, which at Stem Cell is a very small department because they do a lot of stem cell work. So like molecular biology isn't necessarily their forte. And my previous experience at at SickKids had kind of given me the qualifications for that role. And so I definitely knew I'd be working kind of outside of the realm of what Stem Cell was typically employing students for, but nonetheless, the opportunity to work in an industry job and work in this elusive science industry kind of position very much intrigued me. And when I had gotten the offer, I was like, yes, I would really love to live in Vancouver, get a chance to see what's like there. For anyone who is tuning in, who is a UBC Schulkleader, I am in love with Vancouver, or anyone who is from Vancouver or has visited Vancouver. I think my family is really when I came back, my family was very irritated at the amount of time that I talked about it. But no problem. It's gorgeous, and the Stem Cell itself is a fantastic company. I had a really good time working there. I had a really good relationship with my supervisor. Because it was a smaller department, I was left with a lot of projects that I was able to run independently, and kind of take the lead on myself, giving me a lot of project management and time management skills that I wouldn't have gained in a role where I was more heavily supervised. For example, in previous academic research roles that I had both at McMaster and at SickKids. And so that kind of level of independent growth in a new province, in a new job, was a great chance for me to grow both as a leader and as a scientist. And so for anyone who is looking to grow in that regard and looking to explore, I definitely recommend taking advantage of any co-op terms that you might have to do so, and definitely recommend Stem Cell. But that's kind of how I learned about it, and then kind of what pushed me to go out was to explore more. Thanks for that question, Julia. And if anyone has any other questions about stem cell technology itself, feel free to leave those questions in the chat. Again, I really did enjoy that experience. It was something I definitely recommend to anyone who's looking for a co-op job. It was a really cool chance. There were a lot of other students there, which was nice. It depends. Sometimes at some co-op jobs, they have enough to hire one or two co-op students, so you might be working with 3 or 4 people your age, and then a lot of older folks, which is not bad. They're fantastic. I love my supervisor. I loved the master's student that was working at Stem Cell as well. But it was really cool to be able to interact with a lot of students my age at Stem Cell, because we were all kind of in the same boat, whether it be that we were all coming from either UBC or McMaster, a lot of people from UVic, any UVic leaders out there, again, Vancouver, British Columbia in general. I didn't get a chance to go to Victoria. I really wanted to. But the opportunity. Oh, and Simon Fraser, of course. Gotta include all of them. Um, like the chance to interact with students that were your age and to kind of have that work experience, but also that outside of work social life experience with a bunch of students and learn about things and grow together. Fantastic opportunity. And this kind of goes for any companies that have good like co-op student culture. So definitely look into that when you're looking to apply for a co-op job. It's like, what's the student culture like? Because you're going to be living there for 4 months, 8 months, 12 months if you're doing like internship. And so understanding like what the culture and like what the environment of the job itself is like is super important, because you really want to make sure that you're going to either have a chance to find a community that you identify with and can have experiences with, or figure out like if a more independent experience at your work or interacting with like grad students, master students, your supervisor, finding a community there or communities outside of work, like what is that like social experience going to look like? Because on co-op you work from 9 to 5 and you have the rest of the time for yourself, which is very odd for someone who was in a like coming straight from school into a job. Is very much a switch in your mindset and your work. So I definitely recommend looking into that as well if you're looking for a co-op position, as inquiring about the social kind of experience, because that has a role as well. It has a role in ensuring that you have a good actual like life experience in the process, which some may not have the luxury to choose, but if you get the opportunity, definitely look into it. All right. Um, Quickly before I move into kind of extracurricular slash more McMaster related experiences, I wanted to touch quickly on the idea of like academic versus industry research and what might incline you to pursue a job within either field, or a co-op job or a volunteer position or whatnot. So from my experiences in both academia and in industry, one of the big differences is the topic or the drive for the research that's occurring. So when you think academia, you think about research that is driven by, discovering, a new drug for a certain disease. You are discovering like a new mechanism, or like understanding a mechanism for the first time. And the drive to get there is to create like is to essentially define a novel idea or prove a novel theory within your field. Now, sometimes this can be different depending on the lab. Some engineering labs, like the engineering lab that I had worked in first year, um, often might have more, like when you're looking at the grand scheme of the project, like the end product might actually be a product that you're doing research for. But it's more theoretical from my experiences in academia, whereas in industry, a lot of the research that I was doing was for product development. The idea of it wasn't necessarily like for like we weren't necessarily just looking at how you can like separate DNA. We were looking specifically at developing a product to separate DNA. So the idea of all of your research is actually going towards the development of a tangible product. And during my time at Stem Cell, can't speak too much about the actual work that went on, but the experience itself, there were a lot of meetings actually addressing all aspects of the product. So not just the research that is being done, like R&D is like one part, but you also have how is it going to be scaled? Like how are you going to be able to take the product that you've developed in the lab, whether you develop like a buffer or like a batch of cells, how are you going to take that and scale it up such that they can sell this as a product to like multiple, like thousands of people across the world? Can it be shipped? What are conditions like? What does the quality control look like? What does the packaging look like? All of this is something I never had to consider when I was doing academic research, but when I was in meetings, they would ask me questions about like, how long does it last? on the counter? What are you doing with this? What does your buffer look like? What is the consistency? Because those things actually affected the rest of the product's development, which is a very, very, very different experience because there were multiple people invested in multiple projects. Like even like my supervisor had multiple projects and he would also consult on other people's projects within other departments within stem cell. So it was that kind of shared environment and experience within an industry. And again, this could also be specific to the company that you're working at. Stem cell, that's kind of how it operated. Like it was very much that cooperative environment where you would have meetings with people from across the company, both like marketing and whatnot, marketing, R&D, quality and control. And you were able, they didn't care if you were a co-op student, they didn't care if you were a senior scientist, they would talk to you and ask you the questions that they needed because they knew you had the information. So it was a really, really cool experience, very different from the idea of like when you're in academia and you're like working with your PI in your lab, and a lot of people in your lab will help like answer questions on your project, but you're not necessarily pushing towards like a product or like something that's actually getting sent out to folks. You're working towards like the completion of like a paper, or you're looking at finishing a like theoretical product, not necessarily to be scaled, but the idea that it can be done. Whereas like working at stem cell is like, can it be done consistently and well enough that it differentiates us from competitors and whatnot. So like that was a really, really cool experience. And I definitely liked the opportunity to be able to experience both. All right, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about for a little bit, it's kind of steering away from research and more into student experiences, is my experience with the McMaster's Science Society. So for those of you who missed the intro, the McMaster's Science Society is a student group at McMaster which represents all undergraduate science students in the Faculty of Science. So McMaster has a Faculty of Science, some schools have Faculty of Arts and Science, but being that we have like a separate Faculty of Science, we have a society just for those students, and that is the MSS. And our job is to provide services and run events, resources, whatnot for science students. We kind of facilitate the role of helping students go beyond just their everyday classes. So think things like providing first year mentorship programs. So how are students, especially in the time of COVID-19 when a lot of students are entering, shout out to any first year cheerleaders who are coming in the online semester. Like we are all going through this together. It's going to be an interesting experience for all of us, but I'm sure you are all going to do amazing. So providing first year mentorship to students, running tutoring programs. We run like online conferences, or in person now online conferences on like how to find a job after you graduate from your bachelor's, and like what else can you do in science outside of pursuing just like grad school or a professional program. Like what can that look like for you? And then social events, think like science formals and all of that. But generally, if you have a science society at your university, their job is to provide programming that the faculty can't provide. So the tutoring that I provide, while a lot of folks are able to tutor, whether like TAs tutor or there's private tutoring, one of the things about the MSS, which is great, is that we can hire undergraduate students and then provide employment opportunities for them, and then in turn provide affordable tutoring for students in our university. So providing like, $15 an hour tutoring for a lot of students is great because it employs undergraduates. It allows students to get taught and receive tutoring from students who have actually experienced the course. And the MSS also provides like reimbursements and subsidies for our tutoring program. So it allows us to continue to support students financially as well. So that has been a really, really, really good experience in student government and understanding how students can play a role in another student's life. Because it's one of those things where if you're thinking on the everyday level of a student, how many times do they interact with your organization, with your club? For anyone who runs clubs or teams or whatnot, thinking about like how many times does a student interact with your club? How do they interact with it? And how can you maximize that interaction to ensure they are both exposed to the experience that they could have as a part of, for example, the MSS, and like what can you offer in that moment to bring their experience above and beyond what it currently is. And those are the kind of things that we look to advance at the MSS. So I've been involved with the McMaster Science Society for 4 years. I started back in first year. I forgot how long I've been on the MSS. It's been a while. I've been back there since first year. I was one of their first year representatives. I was very involved in high school with student government. And so when I had gotten to McMaster, I was like, oh, this is a really cool opportunity for me to get involved with like a student group that is very akin to a student government, something I'm kind of comfortable with, but on a larger level. And so I ran for their first year representative, and I was elected in alongside another individual. And from there, I was able to gain experiences within the MSS, understand how the team works, and what services they provide. After that, I was able to run for vice president internal, stayed on as their social media director, and now I am their current president. And so that's been an interesting experience and a really, really awesome one so far. And for anyone who is thinking about pursuing an opportunity within student government at a university level, it is something I definitely recommend. It is a great opportunity to meet other student leaders within your university who are also invested in improving the student experience, which is you would think that it would be something you could bump into easily, but because a lot of students who are doing that are very invested in their projects, it's very hard to cross paths with them sometimes because they're working on this initiative or this campaign or, this service. And so being on a student leader level and being able to actually like interact with them and get to know them is a really, really cool experience and gives you a great networking opportunity within your university. It's also a great opportunity to get to know faculty, to get to know various individuals within your university, whether it be department heads, your dean, etc., and talk to them about what's going on within the student experience. So, for example, one of the questions I was asked is about if there are any initiatives that we're planning to implement in the MSS relating to the online semester. So being able to talk to your dean about the student experience and about like what being an online student means when you're like on a like personal level, because a lot of times like faculty members are thinking like large scale. They don't have time to think about one student. They are thinking about like thousands of students. So you have the opportunity to voice thoughts on behalf of your constituents, on behalf of other like first year, second year, third year, fourth years, and beyond. And so it's a really cool opportunity to get involved. So in terms of initiatives that we're planning to implement in the MSS relating to the online semester, things that we have started doing is, first of all, moving everything online. I am sure a lot of universities are doing this already. So we've moved all of our services, our mentorship, tutoring, our student, like our socials, our welcome week programming, all of that. Welcome week is like fresh orientation, depending on what university you go to. The naming differs across the board. And from there, we are kind of hosting everything through Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Brazen, a couple of different services that allow us to kind of emulate that experience. Brazen is a fantastic service for like student like booths. So there's like a lot of like Quantum Leap, which is our like careers in science conference, gives you an opportunity, for example, like at the Schulich conference, for those of us who have been before, being able to like go to talk to different people at different booths. Well, you're not going to be able to do that anymore. So we are switching into an online format and an online platform like Brazen that can host those things for us. So that was the main thing that occurred. And the second thing, not necessarily related to the online semester, but relating to COVID in general, is that the McMaster Science Society started a student employment grant, or SEG, which allows students to apply for up to $1,000 towards any job opportunity that they can secure. So for example, we had a lot of students secure part-time jobs with professors as like research assistants. And so they had applied for the student employment grant, and that money went directly towards their employment. We have set aside about $100,000 for students, and that was purely because of how we saw that many students were losing opportunities to be employed because a lot of companies and a lot of professors weren't able to secure grants, like weren't able to operate just because things were shutting down as they should have. So we opened that up as an opportunity for students. And so generally, in terms of, for those of you who are starting university or starting to get back into university, because believe it or not, classes are starting soon. I know for those of you who are on co-op, probably not thinking about this, or not in undergrad, not thinking about this. For those of us in undergrad, definitely thinking about this. You'll notice that a lot of student groups, whether it be your student union for the entire university, whether it be your small clubs or organizations at the level of the McMaster Science Society, are starting to move all of their programming online, and everything will be accessible through whatever platforms that are like advertised on their website or you're using at your university. For anyone who's in student government positions, like at the MSS, one of the, not initiatives we plan to implement, but one of our goals was to try and sync a lot of the platforms with what students will be using at the university already. So for example, like Zoom is going to be the video call of choice when we are running events, because we know students will have Zoom accounts. Or if we're hosting like a networking event, or like a low-key social, we might have an MS Teams group, like a Microsoft Teams group, because every McMaster student has a Microsoft Teams account, has a Microsoft account through McMaster. And so keeping those things in mind is definitely something we've been trying to do at the MSS, and something I encourage anyone who's running any sort of club, group, society, whatnot, to keep in mind, is just to make sure that you're syncing everything across the board with the university, because there's a higher chance that a student is going to get involved when they can just click your link and it automatically brings them to the event that you're hosting, whereas they click the link and then are invited to download a new application. And that definitely is not something that students like to do, definitely be something that's going to turn them away. So it's small things like that we're trying to keep in mind. And believe it or not, faculty are also trying to keep this in mind as well. And they're trying to sync things across the board. So hopefully that'll be something that universities are able to accomplish across the board, is ensuring that students have platforms that work consistently. But yeah, that's kind of relating to McMaster Science Society. We are also looking at initiatives to expand the services that we currently provide. Again, a lot of our projects have been put on hold because of COVID and because of the online semester, or COVID-19. Gotta be specific, because to be fair, if you just say COVID, you'd be like, which one? So with COVID-19, so we're trying to keep everything accessible to students, but also keep in mind that a lot of students are going to be online all the time. So hosting a lot of online events is not going to be something that they want to do. So it's things like that. That's like the biggest like extracurricular experience that I couldn't recommend more to people who are looking to get involved, and looking to, if you think there are things that you want to see change, like if there are things within your university that you want to see, like, get better, or, you feel like your student voice isn't being heard, being a part of a student group like a society is something you definitely recommend. Am I involved in other groups on campus? I have been involved with the McMaster Students Union through their Horizons and Spark programs, which are kind of like mentorship programs for first-year students. Those are something that they host, like their volunteering positions that I've held, that have allowed me to connect with first-year individuals and talk to them about what their first year is going to look like, talking about like leadership growth, etc. And it's been a really, really cool opportunity just to mentor, because mentoring is something that I'm also passionate about and something I also enjoy doing. So being involved with Spark and Horizons was a good experience. And another group that I was involved in was Residence Life at McMaster. I was a Residence Orientation Representative, or an ROR in Res Life terms, for a couple of years. An ROR is, like, for any of you who do like orientation week programming, if you have like orientation leaders, that's what an ROR is. But at McMaster, there are like faculty representatives, so individuals who represent the faculty, like faculty of science, faculty of arts and science, um, faculty of like social science. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of all of them on the spot right now. And then there are residence representatives, like for every residence at McMaster, because we have multiple buildings. And so you would represent a building for the week and for the year, because they made it a year-long commitment. And your job would be to help students adapt to the experience, help them move in, like, run events for them throughout the week, throughout like orientation, and then also run a year-long events for them. And this was a great opportunity, again, to connect with first-year students. Mentorship and like first-year peer mentorship, whatnot, is a big passion of mine. So there are a lot of opportunities like that on campus, and those were ones that I sought out. And I could not recommend that more, because it's a great opportunity to kind of give back to any individuals who had helped you during your first year at first year university, or anyone who's at any McMaster's leaders, those of you who want to give back to any of the reps that helped you. Those kind of things are a great opportunity just to get to know more folks, and to get to know also more leaders within your university, because a lot of people that run all of the programming that happens there are students who are invested in the student experience. And if you're someone who is passionate about trying to get students involved, or passionate about seeing student life change, getting involved in experiences where events are being run by other student leaders allows you to connect with other individuals. It's one of those things that I've always been interested in, and luckily there have been a lot of opportunities to pursue that interest at my university. So if you have any questions about mentorship, peer mentorship, or like student government, those are the main realms in which I have operated at McMaster. Like, I've been involved with the Chemical Society at Mac, which is like our program society, so like the smaller groups that are under the MSS. And basically society work and peer mentorship. And the cool thing is, when I was on CoOp, that also gave me an opportunity to still be on the Science Society but operate remotely. So I was doing work there as our social media coordinator from Vancouver, which was interesting with the time difference, but it was still very cool. And so again, those are things that I've been interested in pursuing, because it allowed me to grow as a leader. As someone who likes to work with others, that was also a great, those paired together were a great opportunity to work in that field. So yeah, those are the kind of the other groups that I've been involved with on campus. I'm involved with at McMaster. It was a really, really, honestly, I could go on for a while about it, but I don't want to do that to everybody. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Let's talk quickly about how extracurriculars have helped me as a student, and then we can end it from there, because it's like 45 minutes we're coming on. And so extracurriculars are always a point of contention for a lot of folks, because as students, for those of you who have been involved in extracurriculars for a while, as you get older, it can feel like, oh, I'm spending XYZ hours on this thing that I'm not getting paid for. It can be very easy to associate like the work that you're doing for the pay that you could be getting. But for me, why I choose to get involved with like student government and like peer mentorship based extracurriculars is because what I get out of them are leadership skills, like stronger leadership skills, a stronger network both within my university and outside of the university, and generally a good chance to empower individuals. Those are like the three things that I get out of it. The leadership skills one is most like directly relevant, the opportunity to just work with different types of individuals and be able to grow your skills as a leader, because a lot of the times it can be really easy for you to get caught up, at least for me, like I can do things myself. Like I'm one of those people that sometimes like, oh, I can do this, and I'll turn around for 45 minutes and get things done. But a lot of times you're going to be working in an environment where it's not just you. You're going to be working with multiple other individuals, and based on what level of like a company that you're in, or what like your relationship with like a grad student or with your supervisor or whatnot, or if you have like undergraduate students that are under you or working with you, being able to lead in a way that is like cohesive and allows everyone to complete work both in a cooperative fashion and where everyone feels empowered to do so is a great skill for leaders to have. And so being involved in student government allows you to grow those skills, especially because it puts you around a lot of other student leaders. That's the networking part of it, allowing you to meet a lot of other like qualified leaders and meet faculty that'll help you further down the road. And then the last one, just to be able to empower individuals. And for me, that helps me as a student because it's something I enjoy seeing. Like, I enjoy watching others do well. And so being able to watch individuals grow within the leadership positions that like I had talked to them about pursuing or applying for, it's a great opportunity to actually just give back to those who have helped you get to where you need to be. It's the same with any of you if you have a mentorship program within your Schulich leaders at your university, like being able, like I had Marta Skreta. I don't know if you're watching Marta, but Marta was my mentor for when I was in first year, and if it weren't for her, like I wouldn't have secured my first volunteer lab position. And I was so grateful for the connection that I had with her that I applied to be a mentor, and now I have a couple of mentees. One of them is Julia, who is asking all of the questions, and I love her so much for supporting me on this call. I just had to call her out because I know she's watching. But again, it's that opportunity to give back. So even if that's just within the network, like if that's something you're interested in doing, or if you're giving a talk at an SLX and like you want to be able to, like you saw a great talk like a couple of years ago and you want to give back and do one yourself, great opportunity. So those are the kind of things that like getting involved with extracurriculars can allow you to do. And it's something I encourage you to do because it gives you a chance to grow outside of just your degree. So that's pretty much it for me. It is like going on 47 minutes. I was like, I don't know how long I can do this for. But the fact that I've been given a chance to talk about my experiences and that this is going to be available for other Schulich leaders to watch and other individuals to see is great. I want to take the opportunity to thank Kinga and David for organizing this and for allowing all the leaders to have a platform to learn more about one another and learn about each other's experiences. I am available if you have questions regarding anything I have mentioned in this video. And if you want to reach out to me, feel free to message me on Facebook, like through the network, like it should link my contact here. Feel free to email me anything, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And to end off this AMA, I'm going to answer the last question from Julia, who says, "You're obviously a very impressive individual." Stop. I also know you're a very normal person. We talked a bit about your love of reptiles before. Can you mention your top 3 favorite reptiles? All right. This is an interesting question. One of the reasons I like this question is because it's very outside of what you would think would be asked at an AMA. So I thought it'd be a good question to end off on. My top 3 favorite reptiles. The first one, I had a long time to think about this, is definitely, there's a snake at the Science Center. His name is Gary. I work at the Science Center as a recreational programs assistant. So I run like camps and birthday parties, which is just a great way to love science and work with kids, which was a great job. And he was like the mascot for the Science Center, and he passed away a couple of years ago. But Gary specifically is my first favorite reptile because he's fantastic, and all of the kids in my camp absolutely adored him. For any of you who have been to the Science Center, it's in like nothing's changed. It looks exactly the same. The very bottom level, there's like the Living Earth exhibit. There was the snake in the one area. That's scary. Second favorite reptile is a poisoned dart frog. They are fantastic. I think the colors are great. And they are really cool just in the fact it's like, oh, this looks super cool. But at the same time, if an animal consumes it, poisoned. And then my third favorite reptile is a salamander. I just think they're really cool. I hope a salamander is a reptile and not an amphibian. I'm taking shots here. Hoping this is for anyone who is in any sort of like ecology, environmental science, bio. I apologize if I have put the animal in the wrong group. But those are my top 3 favorite reptiles for anyone who was curious. I doubt anyone was, but we're going to end off on that very interesting and arguably relevant but not relevant question. So thank you so much for anyone who's tuning in. Really appreciate the chance to talk about my experiences and to talk a little bit about McMaster, stem cell, chemical biology, and reptiles. All right, thank you so much, everybody, and I hope you have a great start to your week.